Hi, it's John Terry with Vision Advisors. A number of you have reached out and asked questions about the upcoming implementation of the new version of the DOL rule. So we wanted to take just a few minutes and share some insight so that you can understand your obligations under this new DOL rule to make sure that you are doing your very best to be in compliance with those rules. Now, what does the DOL rule actually cover? It covers any and all sales activities that are related to retirement dollars of your clients. That's traditional and Roth IRAs, your SEPs and Simples, all of your government or teacher-related retirement accounts like 403Bs and TSAs, working with entrepreneurs, solo 401ks, KIOs, group 401ks, pension, profit sharing, defined benefit. If it involves retirement dollars, it's essentially going to be covered under the DOL rule. Now, there's two components that you as a financial professional need to be aware of in this DOL rule as it relates to compliance. The first off is the prohibited transaction exemption, also referred to as PTE 2020. Now, that allows you as a financial professional to sell a conflicted product, meaning a commission-based solution to the public, despite there being a conflict of interest. Commissions are deemed a conflict of interest because you are earning money at the client's expense. And anytime that there is a conflict of money changing hands, that is an issue that's got to be disclosed. So carriers going forward that you work with are going to require, as they did under the prior implementation of the DOL rule, that you have a PTE disclosure signed so that your client knows that you are being compensated by a commission for the sale of products or services that you are offering to them if you are selling commission-based solutions. Also, if you are a fee-based transaction person working in the Series 65 space, that same PTE rule applies to you because you would be receiving a fee as a result of them engaging to do business with you, whether that's assets under management or a flat fee. Still, there is a fee involved that has to be disclosed in conversations with the client. And then there is a 5-part investment advice test that has been reawakened as part of this new DOL rule. That 5-part investment test is used to determine whether or not the DOL rule applies. The 5-part investment test simply says this: if you render advice or you make recommendations to your clients as it relates to their retirement assets or their retirement future, and that's part of what you do on a regular basis in your business, it's pursuant to a mutual understanding that you are engaged with a client to have this conversation, and that the advice that you give in some way is going to help guide the investment decision, and that advice that you're rendering is individualized to the client and not general and educational in nature. This 5-part test says that those specific conversations are going to be deemed advice or recommendations subject to the DOL rule. Now, there are 3 key provisions that you've got to make sure that you follow under the DOL rule. The first off is the best interest standard. You need to make sure that in your transactions with the public, any interaction that you have, that you are acting in the client's best interest. That means your commission, your compensation, your fee, whatever it is, anything that benefits you has to be secondary to serving the client at the highest level. Compensation that you are going to receive, whether fee or commission or a combination of the two, depending on your licensure, has to be deemed reasonable, and it has to be comparable to what similar financial professionals doing similar or the same services that you are providing would be compensated for those same services. And thirdly, you want to make sure that you are making no misleading statements. You want to make sure that you're giving full and clear disclosure of all pertinent information, all facts and information that's necessary for an individual to make an informed decision and say yes or no to a recommendation that you're making. Now, there are a few areas of concern that I do want to point out where the DOL rule is going to apply that you need to make sure that you're covering in your practice. These are all pretty common sense items that most financial professionals are already doing, but I did want to make sure and cover those just so you can go back and check your policies and procedures and make sure that these are being properly addressed in your practice. The first off is, when are you making a recommendation? Well, if you're giving general education that's in the public domain and that is not specific to that individual client, that is not necessarily deemed investment advice. As an example, if you are doing a dinner seminar and you are giving general information about a financial topic such as retirement or long-term care or estate planning, whatever it may be, general education is not considered advice. Now, where advice becomes subject to DOL is where we get into what can be considered implicit or implied recommendations. If, as an example, you are giving available options to your client about 401k versus IRA, and it's general in nature, that is education, not necessarily advice. If, however, you begin to get into an implied recommendation where the conversation begins to be more specific as it relates to that client, even though you may not make a specific recommendation, once you begin to bring in individualized numbers of that client or individualized numbers of a specific type of product, service, or solution, now you may get into what we call an implied recommendation. Well, although you didn't implicitly say you should move from this product to this product, which is an implicit, you should do this, there are implied recommendations under DOL where you go beyond just giving basic education and getting into the nuances, specific numbers, specific details, or linking your solution to someone else's solution as it specifically relates to a client. So again, you need to be aware of when you are and when you are not making a recommendation. Now, another issue is what constitutes a transaction. When we think about a transaction, a plan-to-plan transfer is a transaction that's covered. So a client of yours leaves employer A, goes to employer B, transfers his plan from A to B, that's covered under DOL. But also when they leave employment and they move their plan to an IRA, that is considered a transaction. Moving from an IRA to an IRA is also considered a transaction that is covered under the DOL rule. So an easy way to think about it is like this. If you're giving guidance, recommendation, or advice, and that guidance, recommendation, or advice results in compensation to you or to an affiliate of yours from a transaction that follows, you have now had a transaction, and more specifically, a prohibited transaction has taken place because there is a fee or a commission that's going to be collected as a result of that, and all the appropriate DOL compliance obligations fall in the midst of that. Now, interestingly enough, under this new rule, what constitutes an IRA may extend beyond what you have considered up to this point as an IRA. Now, we're talking traditional and Roth IRAs, of course, but also IRA annuities are covered under this, as are health savings accounts, Coverdale education savings accounts, and Archer medical savings accounts. All of those fall now under the purview of the DOL rule, and any guidance, advice, or recommendations made in any of these areas outside of 401ks and all of the group type plans, even on the individual plans themselves, DOL now has the ability to take a look at and monitor, and those transactions are now subject to the DOL rule. You do need to understand conflicts of interest and where they apply. And as you're having conversation with your clients and talking through the solutions to their problems, you need to identify what those conflicts of interest are. You need to not only identify those, but make sure you have documented what those conflicts of interest may be. If you have a conflict of interest that is identified, you need to be able to show the steps that you've taken to mitigate that particular conflict. That would include, as an example, if you're going to be earning a commission on the sale of money coming from a 401k to an IRA, as an example, then you need to be able to show that you've done an analysis of the current plan to show the features, benefits, and costs related to staying in the 401k as it would compare to moving those dollars into an IRA. And as you show the consideration, you need to show the benefit to the client of making that move and how you're compensated, and that compensation benefits the client in some way so that their best interests are served, and they're served at the highest level. Now, not only that, but come July 2022 of this year, anytime you make a recommendation, you're going to have documented in writing a rationale for your recommendation. Essentially, as you're doing an analysis of what they have now and your recommendation, you've got to be able to show on a form or in writing or in a report that you're giving to the client that says, here's what you currently have, here's what I'm recommending that you move to, here are the costs, here are the benefits, here are the advantages and disadvantages of this particular solution, and this is why I am making this recommendation. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but it does need to be documented and evidenced. This is going to be mandated as of July 2022. And as part of this, any insurance carrier that you work with can demand that those records be provided as part of their underwriting, suitability, and best interest review process. So my recommendation would be to start making this a part of your daily practice now, if you're not already doing that. And I know many of you that work with vision advisors are already actively documenting what you do and writing down and explaining to your clients why a move from plan A to plan B makes sense and the reason why. And I applaud you for doing that. You've been proactive in serving your client at a high level. That is to be commended. Now, when it comes to reasonableness of compensation, I touched on that earlier, but I did want to just briefly touch on it again. Your compensation's got to be based on what similar financial professionals are receiving for doing the same work you're doing or similar work that you're doing. So you need to be able to explain as part of that what you're offering to the client, what it's actually going to cost them, the internal fees and costs that are related to that, how you're going to be compensated, what you're going to be compensated, and how that impacts the plan. If the insurance company is paying you a commission that is not coming out of the client's pocket, the trade-off for them is a surrender penalty for a period of years that would actually cost them money if they were to exit that solution early. That's part of reasonableness of compensation and explaining that to the client. If you are Series 65, as an example, and you're receiving a fee and they're going to give you a sum of money and 5% of that's going to be taken away for a commission if you're selling a mutual fund, or you're going to be charging them 1% a year as a managed money fee, that has to be disclosed because it's going to impact the actual amount of money going to work for the client. So they need to understand all of that in the reasonableness of compensation discussion. Now, just because a client wants to make a choice and they say, I want to do this, it doesn't exempt you from the DOL rules. Remember, a client can purchase anything they wish to purchase, but even though they may approach you and say, I want to buy an annuity, or I want to buy life insurance, or I want to buy X, Y, or Z, in this particular instance, if they approach you with something related to retirement dollars, even though they can purchase anything they want, it doesn't relieve you of your obligation to act in the client's best interest. You still have to go through the process of gathering the information, making a recommendation, even though they may say, I want to purchase X and I'm not interested in anything else. You still need to make sure that you've done your homework. Now, they don't have to follow your recommendation, but you do need to give them a recommendation and document that you did and show them that even though they want to purchase this particular solution and they've come to you for that, that this may or may not be in their best interest. And before you exercise that transaction, you are doing your due diligence to show them that there are other options they may not have considered. And at the end of that, at the end of the day, it's still the client's choice as to whether or not they're going to accept your recommendation or they're going to purchase something that is not in their best interest, and they acknowledge that. Now, outlining fees and services are going to be important, and it's important to remember this. You don't have to be the cheapest in the marketplace. It's an interesting question I get quite often is, John, do I have to be the cheapest player in the market? No, you don't. Because understand this, you're there to serve your clients at the highest level. And depending on the wants, needs, goals, and objectives of your client, there may be things that they need that have a cost related to those. And to serve them at the highest level, it may cost more than selling them the cheapest or least expensive solution that you have. Every feature, every service, every benefit comes with a cost. And if they need specific features, services, or benefits to serve them at the highest level, there is a cost associated with that. So in the DOL application and looking at how we serve our clients at the highest level, our goal is to make sure that we're meeting their needs as they want them to be met, and that we're making recommendations that are going to serve them at the very highest level, that we're putting out 100% integrity in what we do without regard to how we're compensated. Because if we serve our clients well, we meet their goals, needs, and objectives, and we provide them the features, services, and benefits that they need to achieve the success that they desire, you're going to be well compensated for that. And if you go above and beyond in serving your client, they're going to refer you to other people just like them that want and need what you did for them. And that's a unique opportunity to grow your practice in a powerful way. Now, it's okay to be fairly compensated. It's okay to make money as long as it serves the client and it serves the client well. So don't be afraid to make money. And don't think you have to be the cheapest. Just make sure your compensation is reasonable, that it's in line with what others are doing, and that regardless of what you're doing, you are serving the client and putting their needs first. Now, another area that's going to be important going forward is the use of bonus products in annuities. And as we look at the way bonuses have often been used in the past, carriers are going to be looking at bonus transactions a little differently going forward, because a bonus not being fully realized is a conflict of interest. If you're selling a client a product with a 5% bonus, then that client is expecting to get an additional 5% bonus on the money that they've deposited. If 3% of that is used to offset a surrender penalty, so you can move from annuity A to annuity B to make another commission, that client has not fully realized that 5% bonus, and that could be a conflict of interest going forward that you need to be aware of in your practice. So a couple of things that you do need to ask. Number one, does a bonus annuity make sense? Now, it allows them to earn more money in the early years because they literally get a chance to jumpstart the growth inside an annuity contract. But the trade-off on a bonus annuity is the fact that it's going to have much lower rates and caps over time than a non-bonus version of the product. So the big question really that you have to answer for your clients under this new best interest guideline is, does a bonus annuity make sense given the goals, the time horizon, and the objective that the client wants to achieve? Secondly, you've got to be able to answer the question how this bonus is being utilized. Are you utilizing it to jumpstart growth within a contract because the client only has a few years to grow money before they need to take income, and that bonus is going to give them an immediate jumpstart to get them closer to where they need to be? Is that bonus being used to overcome a loss from a market-linked product, maybe a mutual fund that a client was in that they've been losing money hand over fist, and they want to stop the bleeding and move the money into a contract that would give them an opportunity to have no more downside and some upside, and a bonus could be used to recapture some of those lost gains? That can be a valid use of a bonus. However, simply to use a bonus annuity to reduce a surrender penalty to move from annuity A to annuity B is going to get increasingly more scrutiny in the months and years ahead. And the question is going to be whether or not that is the best use of a bonus, and was the client fully served with the full benefit of the bonus? That's something you need to consider in your practice. And then let me also mention diligence and prudence. This word comes up quite a bit in the DOL rule itself, and we need to understand what that means. Diligence and prudence means that you are going to engage in a fact-finding expedition when you meet with your client, because there's some basic information that you need to obtain to be able to make a recommendation. You need basic demographic information, the age of an individual, the age at which they want to retire, or the age at which they want their children to go to college. You need to understand those timelines, and those demographics are going to give you that information. You need to understand some psychographic information, their attitude about money, and how they want their money to work for them and their likes and dislikes when it comes to money. You need to understand their fears, their anxieties, and their concerns. Again, getting into the psychographics and understanding what it is that keeps them awake at night and the problem they actually want you to solve. You need to be able to identify, document, and evidence what their goals and objectives are. You need to be able to understand their level of experience as a financial investor, their level of sophistication and understanding of the products and services that you are going to be recommending to them, so you know the amount of education you need to provide to them so they can make an informed decision. You also need to understand their risk tolerance and their time horizons so that the recommendations that you're going to be making are going to be prudent and in line with their goals and objectives that they want to achieve down the road. Also important to remember that you can't make a recommendation without having these basic details. You can't walk in the door with your idea of a pet product and make a recommendation or pitch a product, and then after the fact, try to get the information to validate your pitch. That doesn't work anymore. You need to specifically understand what the client wants to accomplish, be able to answer that very clearly and succinctly. And when you can iterate back to the client, this is what you want me to solve, and they say yes, you've now got a great basis to start building a solution that's going to serve the client and serve them well, because you've asked those all-important questions that have allowed you to do that. We've got a sample fact finder we're happy to make available to you that not only allows you to gather that demographic and psychographic information, goals, objectives, experience, sophistication, risk tolerance, time horizons. We provide you with some questions in that fact finder that you can also use to ask the client the facts, figures, information, and emotions that you need to understand to be able to help solve their problem at the highest level possible. If you want that, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to share that with you as a resource. And as I already shared, the days of leading with a product are over. Going forward under the DOL, as many of you have been doing for some time, and a number of you have started making that transition over the last few years, we're really in a world of solution-based selling. Understanding what it is your clients want and need, and then creating the solution around that to solve their problem. Your goal as a financial professional is to identify their fears, their anxieties, their goals, their dreams, and their ambitions for the future, and then through a solutions-based process, make a recommendation that serves them well. You need to understand what they're doing now and whether or not what they're doing is working, or if it needs to be repaired or replaced or improved in some way. That's part of your job in the fact-finding process, is to understand what they own, what they want it to do for them, whether or not it's actually performing as they desired, and whether or not the course of action that they're on now is going to get them to the finish line at the appointed time. From then, you've got an opportunity to do your analysis and determine if you can get them there better or faster or financially improved when they get to that result, and that's where your recommendations have an opportunity to step in. Again, you want to make sure going forward that you are documenting and evidencing what you're uncovering about the client, taking good notes, any research that you've done, making notes into the homework that you've done, and of course, documenting your recommendations. The DOL rule does allow insurance carriers to request information and take a look at your fact finder, to take a look at your client notes, to take a look at your written recommendations as part of their underwriting process. So be aware that you need to be adding that into your files now if you're not already doing that. But at the end of the day, it's all about one thing. It is about serving your customer at the highest level, identifying what they want, what they need, and where they want to go in the future, and helping them get there. Now, we at Vision Advisors are here to help you do that. We want to help you see the opportunities that are before you in 2022 and beyond. Based upon all the studies that we've seen and the research that we're doing, this is the year that America's discover annuities afresh and anew, because they're realizing with all the financial uncertainty, they need guaranteed sources of income. They need life insurance. They need long-term care. They need the solutions that you as a financial professional bring to the table. And if you also happen to be Series 6, Series 7, 65 licensed, they need those other financial products and services too. They need good tax planning. They need good estate planning. They need a financial professional that's going to take a more holistic approach to planning, give them the comfort and the security that they need to know that their financial future is going to be secure. And that's what we do here at Vision Advisors. We want to help you see and seize those opportunities every single day. We offer business consulting, case prep, case design, new business review and tracking. And we also have a full resource team available to help you with sales and marketing tips and tools to help you get in front of more of the right type of customer, to help you convert more of those prospective customers into buying customers that want and need what you have to offer and say yes to the solution you recommend. We help train you in that nurturing process so that you get more repeat sales and you connect with those clients in an intimate, personal way, that they see you as their go-to resource for everything financially that they need. And lastly, we help you turn your clients into raving fans that introduce you to other people just like them that want and need what you have to offer. That's what we bring to the table here at Vision Advisors. And if we can help you accomplish more of that in 2022, even as this new DOL rule comes into play, fantastic. That's what we're here for. Excuse me. Let me leave you with this. DOL is not something to be afraid of. It's something to be embraced. It's an opportunity for you to use this as a reason to show your client why you are an authority figure and an expert that is serving them at the highest level. Use this DOL rule to your advantage, to have an opportunity to serve your clients in a way they haven't been served up to this point. Excuse me. And if you do that and do that well, you're going to have an opportunity to serve more customers than you've ever served in your life. I'm John Terry with Vision Advisors, and I want to say we are looking forward to helping you serve more customers and serve them at a higher level in 2022 than you've ever done before. Give us a call at Vision, 1-800-505-8489, and we welcome an opportunity to help you help those customers that desperately need what you do every single day.